Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. From 1 King Street West Hotel in downtown Toronto, welcome to the Empire Club of Canada. For those of you just joining us through either our webcast or our podcast, welcome to the meeting. Before our distinguished speaker is introduced today, it gives me great pleasure to introduce our head table guests. I would ask each guest to rise for a brief moment and be seated as your name is called. Please refrain from applause until everyone has been introduced. First, Mr. Lou Eccleston, our guest speaker, Chief Executive Officer, TMX Group Limited. Mr. John Brzezinski, President and Chief Executive Officer of Cisco Mining Inc. Mr. Mike White, President and Chief Executive Officer, IBK Capital Corporation. Mr. Kevin Sullivan, Deputy Chairman, GMP Capital Incorporated. Ms. Verity Sylvester, Vice President, CMC and Company, and past President of the Empire Club of Canada. Mr. William White, Chairman, IBK Capital Corporation and Director of the Empire Club of Canada. Mr. Vivek Mehta, Head, Wealth Strategy, Bank of Montreal. Mr. John Clark, Chairman, Caledon Trust Company. Dr. Eric Jackman, President, Invicta Investments, ULC. And Ms. Maud LeBlond, Group Head Managing Director, Financial Institutions Group, National Bank Financial. And my name is Barbara Jessen. I'm the President of Jessen & Company Communications and the President of the Empire Club of Canada. Ladies and gentlemen, your head table. We're also pleased to welcome some students from Central College. Thank you, IBK Capital Corporation, for sponsoring our student tables today. Students, please rise and be recognized. I am just delighted to welcome you to this lunch celebrating the 165th anniversary of the TSX. When we began talking about this lunch, I personally was surprised to learn that the roots of the TSX actually predate Confederation. On July 26, 1852, a group of businessmen formed the Association of Brokers, formalizing talks that had begun a year earlier to create the Toronto Stock Exchange. Until the mid-1800s, much of the capital for the early development of Canada was raised in the London market. The public shares of large corporations, such as the Hudson's Bay Company, which was, by the way, the oldest commercial corporation in North America, were held in Great Britain. The Hudson's Bay Company, founded in 1670, was modeled on the Dutch East India Company to enable investors to mitigate the risks associated with the fur trade. As European countries embarked on imperial expansion, sea voyages that brought back goods from places in the Far East and the Americas were fraught with risk: pirates, storms, and the limitations of navigational tools. In order to reduce the chances of lost ship ruining their fortunes, the East India Companies came up with an ingenious solution and changed the way business was done forever. They created company stocks that would pay dividends on the proceeds from all the voyages they undertook. Of course, the roots of modern commerce go back much further than this, to 14th century Venice, where merchants first began selling government debt issues. The Belgians boasted a stock exchange as far back as 1531, although they didn't sell any stocks. And in one account that I read, I suggested that the idea of a share market existed as far back as ancient Rome, where organizations of contractors performed state services. An example of such services, I read, is apparently the feeding of geese on the Capitoline Hill as a reward for the birds after their honking warned of a Gallic invasion in 390 BC. The TMX history is not quite so colorful, but by the turn of the 20th century, more than 100 companies were listed on the TSX, and annual trading volume was close to 1 million shares. Today, the Toronto Stock Exchange is one of the world's largest by market capitalization. And here to share with us the modern story of the TSX and its parent, the TMX Group, is Mr. Lou Eccleston, Chief Executive Officer, TMX Group. Mr. Eccleston joined the TMX Group in November 2014. He is a member of TMX Group Board of Directors and a member of the Board of Directors of several TMX Group subsidiaries. Mr. Eccleston has more than 30 years of extensive experience in senior leadership roles in the information services, financial technology, and capital market service sectors. And prior to joining TMX, he was president, S&P Capital IQ, and chairman of the board of S&P Dow Jones Indices. He was named the Institutional Investor Tech 50 in 2012, 2013, and 2014. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in welcoming Mr. Eccleston to our podium.
Thank you, Barbara. My thanks to the Empire Club for giving me the opportunity to be here today. I was fortunate enough to be here for the the club's Invictus Games luncheon about a month ago. That was really a first-class event, and it served as a very fitting kickoff to what was a tremendously inspiring week of games here in the city. And I'm sure it's something that's going to be talked about by Canadians and people from all over the world that attended for many years to come. I'm honored here today to commemorate two very large milestones, the club's ongoing Canada 150 celebration and the 165th anniversary of Toronto Stock Exchange, as Barbara mentioned. I'm going to add a little bit of history anecdote as well, but try to tie it to really how we've kind of grown up together, TMX Group as it exists today and Canada as a country. I've given this a lot of thought in the last 3 years that I've been in this position, and I can say with certainty now, and no small measure of pride, that Canada and TMX Group have a great deal in common, both in how we came to be and, importantly, how we're positioning for the future. From way back in our formative years, the evolution of our company has been interlinked with the country's history. In fact, I think it's fair to say that we did kind of grow up together. But when I was looking back through history and the scrapbooks and all the milestones that we've notched along the way, the evolutionary timeline isn't quite linear, as you might think it would be. In fact, it's reasonable to ask the question of really just how old are we anyway. So this year, we rightly celebrate Canada 150, as Barbara mentioned, a little bit of that history, making the British North American Act, which created the Dominion of Canada. And what I thought was interesting about that is that was a time with a country with four provinces and no security commissions, if you can actually imagine that. But it wasn't until 1982, with the Constitution Act, that Canada achieved true sovereignty from Britain. So in similar fashion, today we celebrate the 165th birthday of Toronto Stock Exchange, as Barb mentioned, 1852. But in truth, the TMX Group of today actually began all the way back with the creation of the Montreal Exchange in 1832, which was then acquired by the Toronto Stock Exchange in 2008. So if you keep following that company then became TMX Group, and then TMX Group Limited in 2012 with the addition of Alpha and the Canadian Depository for Securities. Now, what's interesting with that is that that transaction in 2012 was driven by the Maple Group, which you may have heard of, a consortium of Canadian banks and investment funds that were formed in an effort to thwart the takeover of TMX Group Limited by, guess who? Does anybody remember that? The London Stock Exchange, right? So history's woven by a common thread, maintaining Canada's sovereignty from Britain. And that's the linkage I thought that was very interesting to point out as we got started today. So you can call it Canada 150, TMX 165, or simply 2017. This year has been marked by terrific events and really lots of fascinating evolutions that give us plenty of reason for excitement, not just about the history, but that the future that we look to. There's another very significant and undeniable linkage between Canada and TMX, and that's our Natural Resources Foundation. In fact, Toronto Stock Exchange and TSX Venture Exchange today are the number one marketplaces in the world for natural resource companies to raise capital. And that's from some of the beginnings that you heard Barbara mention. But we didn't fall into this. We built this foundation together. As we know, Canada is blessed with a vast wealth of natural resources, which contributes massively to the vitality of the nation's economy. resource industries play a critical role in creating jobs, driving growth and prosperity for Canadians, and they always have. The companies that built Canada's economy, as well as some of the companies that literally built Canada's infrastructure, from railroads, manufacturing, resource exploration, and communications, raised the capital to run their businesses via Toronto Stock Exchange. Investors came to depend on our markets for integrity, efficiency, and reliability, and Canada's capital markets grew into some of the best in the world. Our leading institutions have weathered all manner of financial crisis if you look back over the last 100+ years. The success story that is TMX isn't really about us. It's really about our clients and the stakeholders that built our marketplace into the true global leader that we are today. In fact, during the Great Depression, over 2,000 U.S. companies and brokerage firms closed. Not one Toronto Stock Exchange member defaulted on their client obligations. That legacy continued, and a similar story followed with the market crash of '87 and then the financial crisis of 2008. Toronto Stock Exchange indeed has a proud history of leadership, the world's first computer trading system, the first fully electronic exchange in North America, the first North American exchange to go public, and the first exchange to appoint a woman as a CEO in North America. TMX also invented the exchange-traded fund, ETFs. This was recognized as one of Canada's top innovations in the last 150 years by the Globe and Mail, and we celebrate that legacy today. From the colorful history of the trading floor through the advent of the electronic age and throughout exchange industry consolidation, TMX has adapted and endured. We have our clients and our broader stakeholder group to thank for that, and their partnership has pushed our markets to the front of the worldwide pack. But as we've all come to learn, and the fine print so eloquently and succinctly puts it, past performance is not an indicator of future performance. Everywhere we turn today, disruption is hitting established industries, and new emerging paradigms are leaving complacent and less agile incumbents in their wake. The question really for us now is, how do we build on our immensely strong and proven foundation for the future? When I joined TMX, which is now 3 years ago, actually another anniversary coming on November 1st, we'd reached a crossroads. We needed to define a clear path forward. And what we set out on was a full process, 360-degree process, trying to decide what does TMX mean, and importantly, what does it need to mean. We canvassed clients, stakeholders across all markets, in Canada and around the world, all of our employees, across all of our businesses. And the goal was really to uncover what does TMX need to be, and what do our client stakeholders want us to be. From there, we embarked on what has been a transformational journey and shifted the company's strategy 180 degrees from focusing on infrastructure to being a technology-driven solution provider that focuses squarely on helping our clients succeed. This was a big change for us and a big focus that we led throughout the entire firm. And it became very clear very quickly what needed to happen. Canada and TMX Group Limited, while maintaining our leading position in natural resources, must also become a world-leading marketplace for innovation companies to raise capital. We need to be the preferred global destination for fintech, biotech, clean tech, life science companies, just as we have become for resource companies. Developing a technology franchise on par with our resource franchise is crucial for Canada as well. This will create new jobs, bring in new foreign investment, and keep global talent here. Sounds like a big stretch, but actually, it's already started happening. TMX markets today are already a breeding ground for innovation with proven success in helping early-stage companies evolve into powerhouses. So far this year alone, TMX has welcomed 27 new innovation companies to our exchanges and 3 from outside our borders. We are literally every day working to bring Canada to the world and the world to Canada. Last year, 30% of our revenue, TMX Group's total revenue, came from customers with an address outside of Canada. We actively encourage foreign investment into Canada while simultaneously bringing Canadian companies to the world stage. Our initiatives concentrate on partnering with market leaders to promote all sectors to international investors and pitching the myriad of benefits that they enjoy when they trade on our markets. Evidence shows that the efforts are paying off. Canada is a worldwide success story today. This is just not aspirational. According to the latest data, through the end of August of this year, net foreign inflows into Canadian equities was more than $47 billion compared to last year of $31 billion. That's a 53% increase. So it's working. TMX also proudly represents, advocates for, and advances Canada here and across the world through initiatives like TMX Ignite, U.S. Innovation Roadshows, international campaigns. This month, for example, we have TMX events and contingents active across the United States, in Brazil, Israel, and Saudi Arabia. So we're very active around the world promoting Canada and, as I said, trying to bring that business into Canada. We're building an increasingly global business by targeting priority areas of entrepreneurship and innovation and opportunity. In the global exchange rankings so far this year, we're second in new listings behind Shanghai, but ahead of all other global peers. And global peers for us are the London Stock Exchange, New York Stock Exchange, NASDAQ, et cetera, Deutsche Börse. Our venture exchange is an international success story as well. Through September 30th this year, technology companies, the innovation sector I mentioned, alone have raised 67% more capital than in the first 9 months of 2016. So when you think about all these statistics and what we're doing and focusing on and the momentum we're already getting, the rise to prominence of Canada's innovation sector is a very real phenomenon that's happening already. The key point here is that TMX capital formation ecosystem, as we like to call it, the junior exchange on venture and the senior exchange with TSX, has evolved beyond a resource play. It's not an aspiration, it already has. It's just beginning, but it already has. It's a dynamic vehicle for generating growth capital for any type of company. It's a channel for raising venture capital in a public model. And I think this is something that makes us very unique in the world. If you look at the IOSCO annual report from a couple of years ago, they actually called us a unique model in the world. And when you think about things that are converging and forming around the world, and you think about a traditional exchange role, and then you think about private capital, venture money, and then you think about something that's rising like crowdfunding or peer-to-peer or human-to-human, as it's now called, we sit right in the center of that. And our job is to find and help growth companies find that capital. And that ecosystem is unique in the world. Today, you can look at Toronto Stock Exchange. It's home to large global companies like Shopify, Kinaxis, CGI, OpenText, recently announced Signworks. While the Venture Exchange features 275 early-stage tech companies. You also hear a lot of talk about, well, companies don't go public anymore, and there has been a history of declining in public companies. But when you look at this on the Venture Exchange, of those 275 companies, more than 20% have gone public in the last 2 years, and 75% of those companies have raised capital in the last 2 years. So that trend, I submit, has already changed. And this idea of being a public venture channel is something that is unique to us and is really starting to gain some momentum. And so this TMX public venture franchise, it's real, it's growing, and it's attracting innovation companies from all over the world as we continue to support our resource franchise. So in the end, when you think about all these numbers, you can see the future is actually already taking shape. And we have a short video to show you.
When I was just a little girl, I asked my mother, what will I be? Will I be pretty? Will I be rich? Here's what she said to me. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be, will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera. When I grew up and fell in love, I asked my sweetheart what lies ahead. Will we have rainbows day is what my sweetheart said. Que sera, sera. Whatever will be. The future's not ours to see. Que sera, sera.
So as our new brand campaign says, as you've just seen, technology is now everyone's business, and it's up to us to craft the future. When you look around, advances in technology haven't merely had the effect of expanding or resetting boundaries in the way we think about doing business. Technology has obliterated the boundaries of how we think about doing everything that we do. Possibilities are now as infinite as a human capacity for imagination. Yesterday's science fiction is today's reality. What was once considered fantasy, as you saw in the video, self-driving cars, robotics, artificial intelligence, is here and now. Conventional thinking has given way to continuous reinvention. And this is what we thought, what role do we play, in the world for our clients? How do we help them realize their visions, regardless of what industry you're in? Hence, the message that we thought we could send that was best for TMX, best for Canada, and best for our clients today and in the future. We need to ensure that Canada is the home base for new game-changing ideas, breakthrough ideas, and redefining industries. TMX is committed to working together with all of our stakeholders to make that happen. Last year, you might have noticed an initiative called the Advancing Innovation Roundtable. We funded that. It was an independent group, 12-member independent working group comprised of senior leaders from all over Canada in the financial services sector. And the whole purpose there was to bring people together to explore market-based and regulatory solutions to keep innovation companies in Canada, and particularly focused on growth companies from 10 million to 50 million. How do we make sure that these companies get the capital they need? And if you look, many of these recommendations are actually underway, have been accepted or been implemented or in the process of being implemented. And that's the kind of thing we want to do more of. So on this 165th birthday, and in the midst of a 150th celebration year, history is important, as always, but we have to build on this foundation that we have coming from history. We have to leverage and grow the powerful and resilient marketplace that we enjoy today. That's the way that we'll ensure relevance and success in the future. So closing thought, and we all know that no future is guaranteed, our future is not guaranteed, but we believe together it is most certainly ours to see. Thank you. So I think if there's any interest in that, we've got time for 2 or 3 questions. If anybody has them, I think we've got some microphones around the room. Yeah. No. False alarm? False alarm. You don't have a question, but you have just purchased this podium for $1 million. Okay, if no questions, I guess we'll move to the next part. Thanks, everybody.
In celebration of Canada's 150th birthday and our 8th event in our Sesquicentennial series, I now ask our series sponsor, IBK Capital Corporation, represented by Mike White, as well as our guest of honor, to join me at the podium and blow out the birthday candles. Please thank Mike White. Please welcome Mike White to thank our speaker.
Yeah, please don't thank me. Madam President, distinguished head table guests, fellow members, and guests of the Empire Club of Canada, I have the pleasure to express our formal thanks to the key speaker and the TMX Group. The Empire Club of Canada is celebrating Canada's momentous 150th anniversary, as we know, with a series of special high-profile addresses from leaders of some of the iconic institutions of organizations that have shaped Canada's history. The TMX Group, as we heard today, is a big part of this series and has definitely helped shape Canada's history. Our luncheon today has featured Lou Eccleston, Chief Executive Officer, TMX Group. We have celebrated the TMX Group's 165th birthday and enjoyed a discussion of the TMX Group's outlook for the future. We are proud of the TMX Group and the role they have played in the global development of our capital markets. The lifeblood of Canada is capital formation, and the TMX Group has been a wonderful partner in raising capital, which facilitates the growth of business and the creation of jobs in Canada. Please join me in a warm and special thank you to Lou Eccleston and the TMX Group. Happy birthday, TMX Group, and as I said, happy birthday, Canada. Cheers.
And now I get to thank Mike. I also want to thank our generous sponsors for making this event possible. Presenting sponsor, Osisko Mining Inc., gold sponsors, Bank of Montreal, Caledon Trust, GMP Securities, and National Bank, and Sesquicentennial series sponsor, IBK Capital. Without sponsors like these, our lunches would not be possible, and once again, we thank you for your generous support. We would also like to thank MediaEvents.ca, Canada's online event space, for live webcasting today's events to thousands of viewers around the world. Although our club has been around since 1903, we have moved into the 21st century and are active on social media. Please follow us on Twitter at empire_club and visit us online at www.empireclub.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, LinkedIn, and on Instagram. Finally, please join us at our next event, November 14th, the Right Honourable Beverly McLaughlin, Chief Justice of Canada at 1 King Street West. Thank you for your attendance today, and this meeting is adjourned.